right, folks. Showtime.
The classification of living things.
It's this way.
Hurry up, I don't want to miss the next tour.
I'm coming.
Strange fountain.
This place is a little weird.
Yeah, but it's worth the 50 extra credit points in science.
I still don't know what a king has to do with the classification of living things.
Did you see that statue move?
Come on, it's this way.
What's all this?
Welcome, everyone, to King Philip's Castle. Our tour will begin in just one moment, but first, for the preservation of the castle, please remove your shoes and follow the standard rules of classification.
What do you mean?
Classify. Sort things into groups by how they're alike and different. The first level, men's and women's shoes. Classify further, please, by their use, casual or dressy. And finally, put the shoes in groups by their parts, without shoestrings and with.
Whew.
Excellent.
Please, can you tell us, what does all this have to do with the classification of living things?
Just as you sorted the shoes by their looks, uses, and parts, scientists have a way to group living things. Come along.
Wait, what do you mean?
Oh, if only King Philip were here to tell us himself. Oh, well, we'll leave this for the next tour. Let's get started, shall we? Yes, indeed, if King Philip will hear himself. On the class.
You want to learn more about classification? You have come to the right place. You see, I have studied the similarities and the differences between living things to figure out which ones to group together. And, of course, where they fit in the classification system.
That's neat and everything, but what is the classification system?
My specialty. One moment, please. Whew. A system is a way of arranging things that go together. Let's see how it works as we classify the royal kitty. She's a common house cat. Wow! Okay, Your Royal Highness. Now, this chart shows the 7 levels of the classification system. We begin with kingdom. That's the largest group a living thing can be classified into. The house cat is in the kingdom Animalia, the animal kingdom. Living things in this kingdom have many cells, eat food, and can move on their own. The next level is phylum. The house cat is in the phylum Chordata. All animals with backbones belong in this phylum. The house cat is in the class Mammalia. Mammals have hair and produce milk for their babies. The house cat also belongs to the order Carnivora. It's a carnivore, a meat-eating animal. The house cat is part of the family Felidae, the cat family. The animals in this family are all types of cats. The house cat belongs to the genus Felis, cats that don't roar. And finally, the house cat is the species Domesticus. Domesticated means it has been tamed so it can live with people. So, you can see that Kitty's full royal title is Animalia Chordata Mammalia Carnivora Felidae Felis Domesticus.
That's a mouthful.
Well, indeed. But look at all I know about her just by knowing how she's classified. The royal kitty is an animal that moves, eats food to get energy, and is made of many cells. The common house cat has a backbone, has fur and produces milk for her babies, eats meat, is a type of cat that doesn't roar, and the common house cat is not a wild animal. It can live with people. Meow! Usually.
That's a lot of information.
Yes. The classification system also helps scientists find information. Speaking of finding, I wonder what we might find in the royal kitchen. I'm hungry. What about you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right, let's go. Let's apply the classification system here and see if we can find the ingredients for my favorite meal. All right. We will need hamburger, noodles, tomatoes and onions for the sauce, and for dessert, ice cream.
I know where the hamburger is. It's here in the cold section of the refrigerator.
The noodles don't need to stay cold. They're here in the cupboard with all the other dry goods.
The tomatoes and onions are here in the basket with the other fruits and vegetables.
I found the ice cream. It's with all the other frozen fruits.
And you had best stay there until dessert, young lady.
Hey, your kitchen is classified.
Of course. Classification makes it easier for people to find what they're looking for. That's why scientists use the classification system. It makes it easy for them to find and share information. Take a look at this animal. What do you call it?
That's a mountain lion.
No, that's a cougar.
I call it a puma. And we're all right. You see, in different parts of the country, people call this animal by different names. Animals also have different names in other languages as well. In Spanish, this animal is called pantera. To keep from being confused, scientists call organisms by their scientific name. Organism is another name for living thing. The organism that can be called a mountain lion, puma, or cougar has just one scientific name, Felis concolor. Felis is the animal's genus, and concolor is the animal's species. Remember that there are other animals that share a genus name, but only this animal has the full name Felis concolor. This system of naming living things was developed hundreds of years ago by a Swedish scientist named Carolus Linnaeus. It is called the binomial naming system. Bi means two, and nomial means name. The two-name system, genus, species.
All this naming has made me hungry.
Ah, yes. But first, a test. Who remembers the 7 different levels of the classification system? Lunch is a clue.
How?
Here's a little trick to help you remember for next time. Take the first letter of each of the levels of the classification system. Then make a sentence about my favorite lunch.
King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
Now, say the sentence, but just use the first letter of each of the words to remind you of the classification system.
King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
Now, can you tell me the 7 levels of classification?
Oh, I see. Kingdom,
Phylum,
class,
order,
family,
genus.
and species.
Well done. This is very good, but it needs a little something extra. Check the royal cabinet.
King Philip, what are these?
These are the members of my royal cabinet, representatives from each of the 5 kingdoms. Today, there are 5 kingdoms in the classification system. Every living thing can be classified into one of these kingdoms. The animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, fungus kingdom, protist kingdom, and the tiniest of all kingdoms, the Monera kingdom. Organisms in each of the kingdoms share basic characteristics, like how they get food. Maybe they eat, like animals, or they make their own food, like plants. Scientists also look at whether or not the organisms can move and how they move. Organisms within each kingdom are also built in a similar way. They can have many cells or just one.
But exactly what does that mean?
Here, look at an onion. No, take a closer look. Do you see those things that look like rows of bricks? Those are cells. Each plant cell has a covering called a cell wall. The dot you see in the center of each cell is called the nucleus. The nucleus is the cell's control center. It controls all the cell's activity. Cells are the building blocks of all living things. Most cells are so small you need a microscope to see them. And all cells are not the same. Animal cells, like these, don't look like plant cells. Cells come in many shapes and sizes. Most large organisms are made up of many, many cells. This chart shows us the differences between each kingdom, right down to the cell level. You can see that the Monerans have only one cell without a nucleus. Some of them can move, and they make or get their own food. Protists also have only one cell, but they do have a nucleus. You can see the cell nucleus in this protist, algae. The organisms in the fungus kingdom have many cells. They cannot move from place to place, and they absorb their food from other living things, much like a sponge soaks up water. The plant kingdom has organisms with many cells. They make their own food, but they are not able to move from place to place. And finally, the animal kingdom has organisms with many cells. They can move around from place to place at some time during their lives, and they eat their food. Now, where did I put my keys?
Whoa! What are all those keys for?
These keys are the keys to the kingdoms. Monerans. We learned a moment ago that Monerans have only one cell. These are bacteria. Bacteria are part of the Moneran kingdom. They are the smallest, simplest living things. They are smaller than most cells from plants, animal, or protists. Bacteria have a cell wall, but no nucleus. Bacteria can be found almost anywhere on Earth, even inside your body. Some bacteria cause illness, like strep throat, but many bacteria are helpful. They are used to make foods like cheese and yogurt. Some bacteria help to break down waste, like dead plants and animals. Most Monerans trap the sun's energy to make sugar for food. But in recent years, scientists have discovered some special Monerans. They live on the dark ocean floor where they can't use the sun's energy to make food. Instead, they use chemical reactions from volcanic vents to get energy to make food. Some scientists want to make a new kingdom for these special Monerans. They know the classification system must be able to change as scientists discover new organisms and new information. Protists. Most protists are single-celled organisms, like Monerans, except they do have a nucleus. Protist cells, like this paramecium, have more parts than simple Moneran cells. They can also make sugar from the sun's energy. But some protists get food by absorbing them from their surroundings, like this amoeba is doing. You might recognize this protist if you have a fish aquarium or swimming pool. It's algae.
King Philip, are we ever going to eat lunch?
Ah, lunch. That reminds me of our next kingdom. The fungi kingdom is full of organisms you've probably seen before and even eaten. Like mushrooms.
Mushrooms are a kind of fungus. However, there are other kinds of fungus that you may recognize, like mold and yeast used to make bread. Of course, there are the less savory varieties like mildew.
Ew.
Fungi are made of many cells. They cannot move around. They get food by absorbing it from other living things or from organisms that are dead and decaying. These mushrooms are absorbing food from a tree, a member of another kingdom, the plant kingdom. All members of the plant kingdom use water, carbon dioxide, and energy from the sun to make their own food, a type of sugar. They use the energy in the sugar to grow. The plant kingdom is separated into different groups called divisions. Of those divisions, all except one are made up of plants with special cells that act like a tube. They carry water and minerals from the plant's roots to the rest of the plant. We call these kinds of plants vascular plants. The tube-like cells are very important. They carry water up to the plant's leaves, flowers, and other parts. And they carry the food being made in the plant's leaves down to the rest of the plant. Take a look at this stalk of celery. Celery is a kind of vascular plant. If we cut it open, you can see the tubes that run down the entire stalk. Now watch what happens if we put the stalk of celery
In this water colored with red dye.
The tubes carry the water up the stalk to the leaves.
Wow.
Most of the plants you see every day, like trees, flowers, and grass, are vascular plants. There is one division of plants that doesn't have tubes to carry water and food around the plant. These types of plants are called non-vascular plants. You've probably seen one kind of non-vascular plant before, moss. In mosses and other non-vascular plants, water from the outside must pass directly into the plant's cells. That means that all the plant cells need to be near water, so the plant can't grow very tall.
Scientists divide vascular and non-vascular plants into smaller groups by the way they make more plants. That is, how they reproduce.
Vascular plants are divided into two groups, plants that make seeds and plants that don't. Plants that don't make seeds form tiny cells that can grow into new plants, like this lovely fern. Each microscopic cell is called a spore. The spores grow inside these spore cases that you can easily see without a microscope. But most plants belong to the group that does make seeds. Scientists divide the seed group even more, into plants that make flowers and plants that do not make flowers. The largest group of plants that make seeds are the flowering plants. Seed plants that do not have flowers produce their seeds inside cones.
Our last key to the kingdom takes us to the animal kingdom.
All living things classified as animals have many cells, eat other organisms, and can move from place to place. Usually, the animal kingdom is divided into 16 phyla. The members in one of the phyla are animals with backbones. A backbone is made up of many small bones joined together and runs along the middle of the back in some animals. Animals with backbones are called vertebrates. They belong to the phylum Chordata. The other 15 phylum are made up of animals without backbones. They are called invertebrates. There are many more invertebrates than vertebrates. Instead of having a backbone, they have a hard, waterproof covering called an exoskeleton. Insects make up the largest group of invertebrates. Insects also have 3 body parts and 6 legs. Insects, along with spiders, lobsters, crabs, scorpions, ticks, and mites, are part of the phylum Arthropoda. To be part of the Arthropoda phylum, an organism must have legs that bend at a joint, section bodies, and an exoskeleton. Jellyfish and their relatives, sea anemones and corals, belong to the phylum Cnidaria. All the members of this phylum have special stinging cells that help protect them from other animals. Sea stars, brittle stars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers belong to the phylum Echinodermata, which means spiny skin. Snails belong to the phylum Mollusca. Most members of this phylum have shells, like snails and clams. Sponges like this one belong to the phylum Porifera. People often think they look like plants, but they are animals. They trap their food in spaces in their bodies. Different kinds of worms make up several other phyla. Worms have soft, slender bodies with no legs or backbones.
These animals are all in the same phylum because they do not have a...
Backbone.
Right. And what is the name of the phylum for animals with a backbone?
Phylum
Chordata.
The phylum Chordata is made up of 5 major classes.
They are fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Fish all live in water. They use gills to take up oxygen from water and to release carbon dioxide. Most fish are covered with scales that help protect the fish. Fish also have fins to help them move through the water. Amphibians are another class of animals with backbones. Some amphibians you may have seen are frogs and salamanders. Amphibians start life in the water, but as they become adults, their bodies change to allow them to live on land. Reptiles are a class of animals with backbones that have dry, scaly skin. Reptiles live in many kinds of environments. They use lungs to breathe air. The 3 main groups of reptiles are lizards and snakes, alligators and crocodiles, and tortoises and turtles. Fish, amphibians, and reptiles are cold-blooded vertebrates, which means their body temperature is very close to the temperature of the air around them. Birds are a class of warm-blooded vertebrates whose bodies are covered with feathers. All birds have wings, and most can fly. Birds can be classified together by the differences and similarities in the traits they share, like beak shape and foot shape. The young from birds, amphibians, reptiles, and most fish are hatched from eggs. The young from the final class of vertebrates are born alive. Mammals. Mammals usually have hair on their bodies and feed milk to their babies. They can live in many places, but most mammals live on land. 2 mammals that live in the ocean are whales and dolphins. Bats are the only mammals that can fly.
As you can see, there are many, many different kinds of living things. Let us proceed to the throne room. Dear friends, so you can see that to find and share information, scientists use an excellent system of classification. Although, because they keep learning more about these organisms and discovering new ones every day, mind you, the classification system can change to reflect these new discoveries. The classification system divides living things into groups by their similarities and differences. Classification starts with the largest group of organisms and works its way down to the smallest group. Can you tell me the order? Do you remember the motto? King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
Kingdom.
Phylum.
Class.
Order.
Family.
Genus.
Species.
I am impressed. Do you remember what is in each kingdom?
Oh, yes. Monarids.
Protists.
Fungi.
Plants.
And animals.
Your achievements merit the highest royal award. I shall knight you with full title. Go on, kneel. I dub thee Animalia, Chordata, Mammalia. In the order of primates, family of Hominidae, Homo sapiens.
That's our classification.
Well, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. You've missed the whole tour.
No, not at all. King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
And that was just the start.
Our classification. We learned everything. We learned
Protists,
we saw the cell of an onion.
plants, the animals. Yes.
Yes.
He showed you the Monero?
Yes, he did.
I can't believe it. That is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. Tell me more.
We had lunch.
Yes.
King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
And that was Kingdom, Phylum. You saw the whole thing?
We saw it.
Class?
Everything.
Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species.
Phyla! Phyla!